Welcome to Thriving Your Love, a podcast where we will guide and help you improve your most precious relationships in life. This podcast is produced and hosted by certified emotionally focused therapist Claudio Vargas Silva, licensed marriage and family therapist, and Trisha Kim Walsh, also licensed marriage and family therapist. Welcome back, viewers and listeners, to Thriving Your Love with Trisha and Claudio. We are incredibly excited and so honored to have two of our very first featured guests from the couples therapy community. And so, Claudio, it's my privilege, our privilege, to invite and to host our dear new friends and colleagues, Shalini and Natasha. We've asked them to come here to talk with us about their specialties, their background, their journey of being business partners together, working in the San Francisco Bay Area. And we're going to get to know them about the enjoyment and the art of the work they do. And a little bit of background for you all listening and watching today is we had the pleasure of, Claudia and myself, our Lyra health providers, as Shalini and Natasha are as well. And we had the joy of sitting in on a virtual Zoom it was a live recording hosted by Lyra for continuing education on the topic of unpacking the in-law baggage, tools for couples therapists working with South Asian clientele. And this was back in March. And Claudio, I think we literally were texting each other back and forth to say, they're fantastic. I hope after this workshop, we can get to know them better. And that's what I do find about my couples therapy community, is that we really enjoy connecting and sharing our knowledge and our relationships to one another, because we just believe in the work we do. And we know there's such a high demand of it, especially since the pandemic. And so with that being said, Claudio, we are kicking off just to say welcome, Shalini, welcome, Natasha. Thank you so much. You are in such high demand right now with your clients, and you do such fantastic work. We're just so excited that you took the time to be with us today. And this will be a part 1 and part 2. So there will be a momentary pause, and then we invite you to listen to the second half of our show today. So again, welcome. And just in good hosting, we'd love to have you both introduce yourselves, and that just letting our listeners or viewers know more about your professional background and anything that would help them get to know you better.
Thank you, Trisha, and thank you, Claudio, for inviting us and, featuring us. We are truly, truly honored to be part of this. And it's also very different for me because I'm usually used to doing the interviews and the hosting, because I did podcasts last couple of years. But thank you both for this opportunity and for being so gracious and so kind and so supportive in our journey. My name is Shalini Dayal. I'm a marriage and family therapist in Fremont, California, and I've been in this business now for exactly 30 years this year, this September. And I feel extremely honored and privileged to be a therapist. And I also feel very honored to work with people. When people share their journeys and their thoughts and their experiences, I feel like I'm part of their world. And I feel like it's such a amazing that I am part of that moment in their life. So when I work with people, and that's why one of the reasons I got into this, I love people. I love working and understanding their experiences and being part of their journeys. And I'm in private practice in Fremont. I work kids and I work with adults, and I can work with families, and I also speak a variety of Indian languages since I was born and raised here. I'm also the co-founder for Basant Now, which is a nonprofit. And we came into being 7 or 8 years ago. But I had started doing free workshops in the community, because a lot of my clients asked, we have all this information, we come to you, but we want something more culturally specific, and also to create awareness within the community, the South Asian community, which 30 years ago had just started to grow. So with that in mind, I think since 2000, this is when I don't remember dates anymore. Look at my white hair, So since 2011, I've been doing workshops within the community to create awareness and interest, and also to demystify the whole process of counseling. because therapy is needed everywhere.
Thank you, Shalini, for the great introduction. And thank you, Claudia and Trish, for having us. It's such an honor. I don't have a lot of therapy experience as Shalini. I'm very new to this world. I was, prior to entering the therapy world, I was working at Kaiser. I'm Natasha Kharbanda, and I'm actually a licensed clinical social worker. So I worked in the ICU at Kaiser, helping families navigate through the Kaiser system and providing them with emotional support during that crisis situation. You know, a lot of my thought process was, gosh, I have this license. Let me do something more with this. What do I need to do? And I just joined some group practices and started getting some experience in therapy world, which of course, you know, now that I look back, it came very naturally to me because the basic elements of therapy, of having that empathy and compassion and the listening skills, those were there. And you know, the individual therapy was amazing, I loved it, but then I wanted more, so then I got into couples therapy. I started my own practice in 2020, and things just have been happening ever since. A very important part of me is that I am an immigrant, and actually a recent immigrant. I came in 2006 to this country as a student, and there have been a lot of ups and downs for me, both, I would say, more professionally, because it took me a very long time to settle. I had visa issues. And then, even on the personal front, I married somebody who's born and raised here. So they were, you know, initial cultural differences, which now I look back and I can say, oh, they were cultural differences, because all I remember is the first year conflicts, you know. So definitely I wanted to do something within the immigrant community. Like, that was very huge for me, that I want to create some awareness. And my practice currently is in Fremont, so I can definitely talk more about my work and our work together, Shalini and my work together. So this has been an amazing journey so far.
Yeah, it's very special how we get to meet each other, right? Even before we attended to the Lyra workshop that you, Natasha, and Shalini, you conducted, I met Shalini in Alignable, and then Shalini, I invited you to meet on Zoom. I think that the Lyra workshop was on a Tuesday, and 2 days before we met on Zoom on a Sunday. And Shalini, you invited me to attend the workshop, and I was thinking which workshop that would be, and it was the workshop that I had already registered. So it was really nice because I talked to you, Trisha, about Shalini. So when we attended the workshop, we felt home already with you. And then Natasha, you were there, and with this natural kindness that you have, we felt really embraced. I was thinking, wow, how wonderful it might be to be a client of Shalini and Natasha. So I was kind of feeling myself how that would be. And you guys bring something unique, and I think that each one of us here brings something unique. Like with Trisha's father, he was Korean, and I came from Brazil, and I speak Spanish and Portuguese. The two of you know the Indian culture, you were raised in India. It is so helpful because it brings so home for people from these places that sometimes they don't know very well how to connect to the culture here, but then they have someone who can speak their language, who knows their traditions, their values. And this is why I have been invited sometimes by a white person, because that person is married to someone who speaks Spanish or Portuguese from Brazil. So I know what they are looking for. They are looking for someone who can connect to their partner, who can understand their partner, who can understand the cultural differences. I know that you guys have said something already about this, but what propelled you to enter the field of mental health and the populations that you work with? So if you can say a little bit more about that. So either one of you can start, okay? Feel free to talk.
I have mentioned in my previous answer, definitely being an immigrant is a huge part of my identity. And that experience has really shaped who I am today because I had to go through a lot of struggles. I still remember when one day I was in grad school, I went to buy milk and my card got declined. And I called up my sister in India crying that, I don't have money to buy milk. So she had to put some money in the account. Also, the whole piece of individuating in this culture, that definitely, now looking back, that time I didn't even have time to reflect actually. It was just because I was first generation, I just had to go, go, go. Because it's such a huge part of my identity, I really thought that, okay, what can I do now to support others and how can I do it? And so what happened is that I attract a lot of immigrants in my practice. And when I started doing couples therapy, which is something that when I was getting these individual clients, they were talking a lot about relationship issues. So then I was like, oh, why not get into couples therapy? And I got into couples therapy and I started attracting a lot of immigrant couples, new immigrant couples who are having these struggles where the woman is coming from India. There's so much loneliness and sadness that she's going through because the guy, and I'm talking about a typical heterosexual couple, the guy has to go out and work and earn and pay the bills. So their roles are very divided. She's at home and cooking and cleaning, which probably a lot of Indian girls in India, being raised in India, are not doing all of that. They are being raised to be very independent, and especially financial independence is something that's really stressed upon. So just helping those couples navigate through the system and also understanding each other, that what the other person is going through, that is one thing. Then the other thing that I was seeing in my practice is that I was getting a lot of couples with in-law issues, new parents who are calling their parents to come and support them from India, and how that is changing the dynamics of this couple who's already struggling. And now the in-laws are coming in between and the struggle becomes even more. So I just one time told Shalini in one of the events that, I think my specialization is in law issues and I should highlight that on my website. And now I'll hand it over to Shalini to talk more.
Thank you, Natasha. That was like, it's every time I talk to you, I learn a little bit more about you. So thank you for being so candid and for sharing your life story. I've been here for a long time, as over 30 years. And my background when I came here was in history and archaeology, and I was on the road to be an archaeologist. When I got married, I understand, arranged marriages, joint families, because I've gone through all of that. And of course, the in-law issues. So when I came here, I wanted to study archaeology. And the professor whose class I went to, when he heard my story, and back in India, and part of my PhD was archaeology, history and archaeology. And he said, no, don't stay in archaeology. There's no money there. It's like you'll never get tenured, and neither will you get a dig. Go find something else. Okay, like I left the class. Literally the first day and the first hour, I left the class. And he said, go take other classes. So I started taking other classes, and I took this class in abnormal psychology at Cal State East Bay. And it just clicked. I was like, I understand why I'm so messed up, and so is my family. Everything came together. So, and that was my falling in love with psychology. And I don't think I've ever looked back. And since then, I've raised kids, and I've lived and learned about life through their eyes and through their experiences. And the reason I talk about that, because I love working with kids, love working with kids. And I work with young kids. Young kids is 1.5 years old and onwards, and teenagers and young adults, and my children who are now young adults. So every moment of their journey, and it has been not without difficulties, I do want to say, but I've cherished and I have learned what they have taught me. No book can teach me. So I really feel very privileged to be part of the journeys, and that's what I bring to my practice, is working with children. And my thesis in my master's program was play therapy, because I love working with kids. My introduction and to couples therapy was a little bit later. And at this point, earlier, I was really focused on working with adults and individual adults and with children and parenting. I did a lot of parenting work, which I still do. And so couples came later. I saw a lot of people around me coming for couples counseling, asking for couples counseling, wanting to work with me, and not from the experience. They had gone to other clinicians from different cultural backgrounds, or the clinicians didn't understand their cultural experiences. So they would say, can you do some couples work? And so I realized I did not have much of a guidance or understanding of couples work. So I did my first EFT externship back in 2017. And that's because Evelyn, who's a dear friend of mine, was like, Shalini, you got to do EFT. I think you'll be good. And then I fell in love again. That was my second love story. So I really loved the whole experience because it gave me a framework and it gave me some really good tools on how to work with couples. And since then, I've done the core skills and I'm hoping to get certified as an EFT therapist. And Gottman is also, by the way, very interesting to me. So I do have the course for the first level and I just have to do that course. I'm interested because I want to learn all these modalities, EFT, Gottman, PACT, Imago, because they work with couples from a cultural lens. So one of the things I have learned over the years, just very similar to Natasha and your experiences for both for you, Trisha, and Claudio, is that culture piece. A lot of these therapeutic modalities, they're missing. And it's weaving, and this is how Natasha and I got together. It's weaving the cultural nuances into these therapeutic modalities so it makes sense to our clients. And that's part of, I think, the next chapter in my journey is, collaborating with Natasha, in our business. For people who don't know, I know Claudio and Trisha, about you and I. Yeah, you and I, relationship consultants. So part of it is bringing that awareness, that understanding into therapeutic modalities therapists are already using, because I do believe most therapists are amazing people. They want to learn and they care about their clients. We're teaching them a different way of looking at the modalities and how to utilize and how to have those interventions fit your client's needs. So
Mhm.
that's where I am. And the people I work with, of course, are children, as you know. My love is for children and for couples. It's the new love that I have these days. So thank you again.
Thank you so much for talking about the two of you and your work. I was touched by something that you said, Shalene, that when you attended to the abnormal psychology class and then you thought, oh my goodness, me and my family, we have these problems. And I had the same experience when I had this class, the same experience. And then it was for me very good because sometimes people feel so isolated, thinking that only them have problems and they don't know that everyone around them also suffer problems. And there is so much prejudice because people are afraid of going to therapy and what others will think of them. And actually, when we go to therapy, we discover that we're all humans and it's so normal to have problems and also so normal to let ourselves be helped. And it would be wonderful if more people and couples, I sometimes I think how many couples could have a better relationship, could save their marriages, could be a model to their children and give their children a nice place, an embracing and loving environment to be. What a different world we would have if this could happen, right? So we thank you so much, and we are going to stop now because we want to have you again for our next podcast. So we want to invite our listeners to tune in, be on the lookout for our next podcast because we're going to have Shalini and Natasha again. So thank you so much for today. Okay, and we look forward to have you in our next edition of our podcast, Thriving Your Love.
Thank you so much for tuning in with us today. We hope you'll join us soon again for our next episode of Thriving Your Love.